All right. Looks like everyone's settling back in. What a wonderful morning. Just such a blessing. And thank you, Dr. Jerry White, again. He's going to stay with us through noon, and then he's off to disciple someone else over lunch. So, it shows a lot about how he manages his time and what he prioritizes. So we wanted to start kind of this, the rest of the day with the big picture of values-driven investing. And it's in headlines all the time. I mean, it's hard to miss. ESG, it's often called, and more than ever, I think, in the history of investing, there's a lot of discussion about values-driven investing, and people are now faced with decisions, and they're moral and ethical decisions about where they place their capital, and how and why. And there's options on either side of the spectrum, and there's more options than ever on the Christian side of the spectrum. And we have some thought leaders with us today, which is just a huge blessing. Many of you could have been up on stage. These are the three we chose, so thank you very much. I'll introduce them in a minute, but please take a moment to look over the bio page that we put in your folder, because we're not going to go through long introductions on bios. We're just going to share a few highlights before each person goes. So please take a look at that. So you know who we have. Greg Lernihan, Rachel McDonough, and DG Elmore are here with us today. So where does faith-driven impact investing in Talanton? What's the context of the environment we're operating in? And that's really what this is all about. So after this, the next session will zone in deeply on Talanton, but we wanted to start kind of with the big picture. So we're going to start with Greg Lernihan, and he's going to give a little presentation. He's the chairman of the Impact Foundation and a growing national voice in this whole discussion, and deeply involved in the faith-driven investing movement. After a successful career at Siemens as a senior VP for over 20 years, covering all of North America, he started Convergent. They have over 2,300 staff now. And did you sell Convergent? Or are you still involved?
I'm still involved, but we sold as well.
Okay, both. Great. Okay, awesome. And now he's kind of turning his attention to really deploying personal capital, family capital for the kingdom in a variety of areas. So, Greg, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with your presentation?
I assume we're hot here. Good morning. I'm going to stand. It's so much easier. I couldn't have followed a better person, Jerry. Thanks for everything you said, because I'm just going to echo many things that you said. As Jon said, I was blessed with starting a company from scratch, and actually we're a lot larger than 2,000 now. We're actually 9,000 globally. And what Jerry said, I had absolutely nothing to do with it. I just showed up, and I have no idea why God blessed this company other than we blessed others with shares and things like that. So my life changed very quickly when I went to Haiti in 2012, 2 years after the earthquake, and I'd already read the book Halftime, Success to Significance. So I left my job day-to-day of running this company, and then I decided to dedicate my time, talent, and treasure to being the underserved, the marginalized. And so for the last 10 years, I've been involved in impact investing full-time. That's what I do with my son. We also have a granting arm as well. And that's money that we receive from we've sold it a few times. We sell a little bit and sell a little bit. I'm still involved with it, but God has blessed us. So today we have investments in 140 investments today in 80 different companies. We do it full-time. We take it very seriously. And I had no idea what I was doing 10 years ago when I started. Did I just put that away? So what I'm hoping during my 10 minutes is we're at the tip of the spear in this room. Anybody could be up here speaking, so I'm almost embarrassed because many of you know everything as much as I do. So I'm just going to share from my viewpoint. I don't think I have all the answers. In fact, I know I don't. But we need you to join us. Now, there's people in the room every time I speak, and they'll say, why can't we solve this problem with nonprofit dollars? Well, if you look at this slide, you'll see a little green square there, and that stands for $485 billion that have been donated for charitable causes. And that's a really great number. The problem is it's been about the same for 40 years. It's 2% of GDP, goes up a couple of percent one year. David would know this. Anybody in the nonprofit space would know this. And we have 1.5 million people trying to get money from a square that's not getting bigger. The rest of that gray area, I think Rachel may comment on this as well, is investable assets across the world. This one's the United States. It's either 20 trillion or it's 200 trillion. It's a lot of money. And so here's two facts you may want to remember. Number one, from 1970 to 2020, there were only 144 nonprofits that got larger than $50 million. At the same time, there were 46,136 companies that built a for-profit company greater than $50 million. There is nothing to debate in this room that we cannot solve our social problems with grant dollars. Now, we love grant dollars. You can't take them down. They make a major contribution. But if we're going to solve the global issues, we have to use capital from the marketplace. Second quote is from UN Sustainable Development Goals, talks about poverty, food, water. They estimate that we will need $4 trillion the next 15 years. So if we assume that to be the case, we were blessed with what they call a wealth event. We didn't even know what that was, but one day we had money in our bank that we didn't have in the day before. And it wasn't a pleasant experience. It was a burden to us. We were very uncomfortable with it. And we sat down and said, what are we supposed to do? Let's look at the Bible. What do they tell you to do when you have resources? And we'll get lots of problems because we have parable of talents, which you built a company on, and I'm going to have a different opinion here in a second. And then and they say, of course, double your talents, do everything possible. And then we have over here with Luke saying, sell all your possessions and give it away. And then in Acts, they're sharing everything. And if you didn't share it, they killed the God. Wife didn't even know. She comes a little late and she's dead. So we don't want to die. So in our case, my wife went back and got a degree, her master's in biblical studies. So I am not a theologian. I'm a Christian businessman trying to apply biblical principles in stewarding God's resources. So there may be some theologians in the room. These are theologians I talk to. And so we take the parable of talents is the toughest one. We all know it doubles. We all know we got it. But we don't see it quite that way after talking to theologians. And we see it more as the master was upset because the one who buried his talents didn't even get bank interest. He said, I would have been even happy if you had got me bank interest, which is the lowest possible return. The other two, of course, he acknowledged they doubled their returns. Great job. But we interpret this not as just a financial return, but at a risk reward. What did you do for the kingdom, for the master? Did you risk my capital? He never said he'd be more happy with 3 times. He left that to our imagination. So we, after interpreting it with theologians and pastors, is we see this as God's resources, and we're directed to take risk with his resources. They're not our resources. So we do take risk. And so from this in our family, we decided that we're going to give money away. We're also going to invest money through what we call faith-driven investing. When we first started, I was on the impact side, which to me is a secular term. And so that was social and financial. I just got out of my business day to day. Literally the next day, I Google some people, and I'm that Monday, I'm working. And I want to deploy some capital. Oops, we'll go back to this. And so we had done some investments the first couple of years and talked about the fingerprints of God. Some of you know Pete Oakes in this room. I'm doing social investing. I'm excited about it, trying to change the world. And I sit next to Pete Oakes at a dinner, and Pete's doing faith with it. I'm going, what do you mean you can do faith with it? I didn't even know that there was this, well, we hadn't really started the movement. And so that really changed the way we invested. And so when we graphed our first investments, you can't see along the bottom, but that's a financial return on the X and social and spiritual on the Y. So the perfect winning quadrant is up in that right corner. That's how every 2x2 works. And we started graphing our investments, and we see up in the top left that we have investments in areas that have low financial returns, but they could have gone to the right and say, how did that happen? So we labeled these and talked about it for hours. And one is buried talents. Obviously, no one wants to ever be in that quadrant. The next one is where all the capital is in the world. Today, everywhere across the world, somebody's trying to make more money, grow the IRR. They could care less about Christians for sure. And that's where all the capital is in the world. And then there's some minor amount of money in that top quadrant called maximizing talents. And there's almost zero money in that upper left-hand quadrant. And what we found is the only time you're in that upper left-hand quadrant is when the Spirit is moving you. The Holy Spirit's doing it, because you can't justify it financially. You wouldn't be in that left quadrant. That's low returns. And so in our family, we started noticing that we were driven by those investments. And the ones we talked to our friends about were always the upper left, Spirit-led investments. The one that are, and I'll explain here in a second, they're with the marginalized. So on the right-hand side, I'd like all the Christians in this room, which are all, you're down 99% of your portfolio is probably in that capitalistic bucket. And we have a lot of money there yet as well. We're moving it to try to go up to the maximizing talent quadrant. There are funds. There's 75 funds, according to Henry Kasner. And what you'll see the difference when we invest on the right-hand side, this is good. You want to be there. They're looking for scale. On the left-hand side, those same people are looking for sustainability, just trying to stay alive. On the right-hand side, you're going to see return on investments driving those because you all put money in, you want them to maximize plus social and spiritual returns. On the left-hand side, they're just looking for human flourishing. On the right-hand side, they have abundant opportunities for job because they're mainly in the United States. On the left-hand side, we're hiring the marginalized, the underserved, the returning citizens, people that are hard to find. And on the right-hand side, they're in established markets, and the left, they're in developing markets. So in our case, our family has decided we want half of our investments in spirit-led quadrants and half of them in the maximizing talents. So Talanton in our model, which has a lot of subjectivity to it, is not at that midpoint. It's just to the left. I was going to show you all of our investments because we have dots all over the place, and they're all 50-50 now. Talanton is right about to the left of focus, human flourishing. They have an 8% return. We're going to do great, and we couldn't be doing a better job with the spiritual and the social component. Here's where, and I have a couple more slides and I'm done. Here's where it gets challenging. To be a redemptive investor, you have to, I sacrifice, we win, which goes against everything we've been trained. It's win-win since we've been young kids, right? And it's easy to get Christians to go from that capitalistic straight up for the exact same return, for the exact same everything, I'm willing to do it. The second you start to go to the left a little bit, that's when they start to get squirmish. They start to say, geez, that parable of talents, I'm supposed to double everything, and you're asking me to take less return. That's really hard. And so what I would tell you is GIN stands for Global Impact Investing Network, collects data on impact investing, and 33% of the secular world said they would take lower returns all the way down to return of capital for a cause they believed in. Faith-driven, 17%. So our faith-filled people, where's Kathy? Somewhere we were talking about, it's one of my facts for you. Faith-filled people are less, and I don't know where Don Simmons, I know he's here somewhere because I got a slide on him, but Don Simmons will support this as well. The further you go left, Christians run. And I feel terrible to say that to a group of Christian people that you're in the left quadrant here, but we need you to evangelize from this conference to others, and you're going to find them very uncomfortable in that space. And I would tell you now, after doing this for about 8 years, it is rewarding. It's not sacrificial for us to go to that upper left-hand quadrant. We seek it. We desire it. We get motivated by Contegra. We get motivated by Masaka Creamery. We get motivated by Verdant, which some of you know. We get motivated by Talanton. When we're in the field, it makes all the difference in the world. And the return, that's up to God. At the end of the day, people say, what kind of return are you looking for? We don't have a number on it. We just say, Lord, these are your resources. Our whole life changed when we said, Lord, help us to understand that these are your resources, because we used to be 90-10. And then when you have a wealth event, 90-10 is nothing. And we said, we can't live like that. There's no sacrificial giving here. And so we changed on that moment to say, these are his resources. And it took us years. So a lot of you are way ahead of us, because 15 years ago, I had said 90-10. That's the gig I got going. But after that, we now are 100%. So that means every dollar are God's dollars. And so that means when you go to invest, risk isn't nearly as important, because we don't believe Jesus come back and say, you took too much risk there, or not enough risk, and you were in Silicon Valley. I think I'll comment on that one more slide. This is the slide I want Don Simmons to see, because this is hard as a Christian, but he wrote a book you should all read, The Servant Leader, Steward Investor, terrific guy, you'll see him speak. And it says, it's easier to pry a steak bone from a hungry pit bull's mouth than it is to persuade a wealthy Christian to invest resources for God's purposes. And that's really harsh. That's really harsh, but it's true. We would say, I'd rather make a pitch to a secular person, because when they're really positive about the experience, that cash is not as important in returns. In our case, we start with spiritual return first. Second, we start with social, and third is financial. And then we trust the Lord. And this one here, I have this fear that one day I'm going to wake up and there's an email that says, from God to Greg, what did you do with the resources I've entrusted you? See you in a couple months or years, eternity. You got to remember, his timeline is not the same as ours. So I know it's coming, and it sits there and says, hey, by the way, Let me know how those exits went that I helped you with. You like that? That was good. What did you do with the marginalized? How many poor did you help? How many people did you bring to Christ? And I'm going to sit there and say, well, we gave us a lot of money, and I was in the upper right-hand quadrant, Jesus, the entire time. So I'll close with, Jerry helped us here. I imagine the people on the panel say the same thing. After doing this for 10 years, which I didn't know this 10 years ago, is the number one thing we can do is provide jobs. Jobs. Now, I've been clean water, I get it. Education, I get it. Healthcare, I get it. But when you give a person the dignity of work, everything changes. They don't always want grant dollars. They want jobs. And I was so proud of what Dave was talking about, 100 jobs here, 150 jobs there. We get excited about 10, 20, 30. So the second thing is the only way we're going to get out, no one's ever served their way out of poverty or served a community out of poverty. You can look at Haiti for itself, $13 billion they got in grant capital, and it's as big a mess as it's ever been. And then the last one is we need Christians to lead. So everyone in this room, which is unusual, is already out in front here, because this is early. Our faith-driven investment movement is early. So I thank you for being bold and courageous.
Greg, thank you so much. What a wonderful message to kick it off. And Rachel, before you go, I'll just say this. I was stunned with our early investors. We'd give them our story. David and I did a lot of that. Harry and Iris, certainly, Michelle. And when someone said yes, I almost said, like, really? Are you kidding me? Like, we had no hardly anything in our portfolio, hardly any AUM, first-time fund managers, and I thought this is all about faith. And Greg was one of our early investors, as was DG, and those folks really are our patrons alongside our board. And we're going to introduce our board and investment committee here in a minute. But so I want to say thank you. And Rachel has her own amazing investment story. So Rachel, you're up next. Rachel is a certified Kingdom advisor and a certified financial planner. She won the Kingdom Advisors National Organization, over 2,000 people at their annual conference. Their Advisor of the Year Superstar Award, or MVP. What do they call it, Rachel?
It's the Larry Burkett Award. And if you know Larry, you know how special and generous and what a leader he was. So
yeah, what an awesome thing for you to be associated with and to win. So, and she's also a national voice now in this faith-driven investing movement. And, it's just wonderful to have you here. So, yeah, go ahead and share a few slides, and then we'll turn it over to DG.
Thank you, Jon. Well, I have to tell you, most of my clients, I'm a financial advisor, if you didn't catch that. So most of my clients come to me, and they're really interested in the capitalistic quadrant. And I remember having a conversation with Henry Kasner a couple years ago, and I said, I really am compelled by this deeper impact type of investing where you're even accepting a concessionary rate of return. I said, there is some little bit of supply, some products that fit in that space. There's really no demand that I can tell. And he said, Rach, no supply and no demand. It sounds like a tough business model. So I do, I think when new investors come to me as a wealth manager, they pretty much are looking for a rate on return, right? So my opportunity is to introduce them to something else, right? To whet their appetite for what could they want. And I think like Steve Jobs, when he was inventing, for Apple, he said, well, let's not give people what they want. Let's give them what they would want if they knew to ask for it, right? And so we take kind of a head and heart approach to investing. Some of the language that I'll use with investors is not overtly Christian-y, because I want them, whatever position God sends them to us, if they're pre-Christian or they're disciples for many years, we want to meet them wherever they're at in that journey and then introduce them to heavenly culture and heavenly values that whet their appetite to meet the King of Glory. Amen? So I take a head and heart approach to investing, and most of it's focused on public markets investing. So we do some impact investing, some private market stuff, but different from most of you in the room. Our focus is on managing the stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. Okay? So I would say investing has become, with the invention of the stock market, has become very accessible to a large number of people. Anyone can participate. Even just the smallest investor with $100 a month can become an investor. And that's powerful. But with the invention of the stock market has also come a huge amount of complexity. There are now thousands of different mutual funds and ETFs to choose from, thousands of managed products to choose from, thousands of stocks and bonds to choose from. And what that's led to is really just the need to have a lot of databases and companies that can help sort that information out and help an investor choose what they ought to own and why. But what's gotten lost in all that complexity is that between the investor and the company in which they invest, there are now many layers and much complexity. So we have the financial advisor, we have the portfolio managers and the products that they use, the analysts who support the portfolio managers to help them choose which stocks they're going to invest in. We have the firms at which those managers and advisors work, and they may allow or disallow certain types of investing. And we have the market itself with this fear and greed governance mechanism that mostly results in a highly transactional experience in investing. But the reality is, the hidden reality is that there are people, humans, image bearers on the other side of each transaction. And if we show up to the investment decision with only our heads, only our analytical skills in play, then we miss out on the nature in which God intended for us to live, which is from the head and the heart, and to be led by His Spirit. So at a minimum, even if a Christian is not a Christian, or even if an investor is not a Christian investor, we at least want to encourage them to pursue a parallel goal with their investing. Now, everyone comes for the financial goal. Let's call that productivity. This is the creation of wealth or the protection of wealth. And that's why people come to a financial advisor. We understand that that's important to our clients, and it's our duty to help them meet their financial goals. But we want to introduce them to the parallel goal. And I would think that a great way to describe that parallel goal, I've heard it described different ways, biblically responsible investing or faith-based investing or faith-driven investing. It's actually right relatedness is the parallel goal. And so we use flowers in that image to get us thinking back to the Garden of Eden before the fall, when man was in right relationship with God, the Creator, who would come and walk with him in the cool of the day. And there was right relationship between people laterally as well. We want to get back to that and use the vehicle and the mechanism of investing to pull down heavenly culture and values back into the earth. The Word of God says that all of creation groans and longs with eager expectation for the sons and daughters of God to be revealed. We can't do that if we're not even in the game. We have to get in the game and have our voices be heard, not just in sweet places like this. This is a sweet place. Are you feeling refreshed being here? I'm feeling refreshed being here. We drove in yesterday and my husband said, "That guy's smiling at us. I wonder why he's smiling." I'm like, he's a Christian. It's refreshing to be with the body of Christ and to just understand that the spirit of unity and the bond of peace that we all long for, someday we're going to experience it every day in heaven, but we're not there yet. And we can't withdraw from the marketplace. So I use a spectrum as well, and I don't want to give you too much, you've already gotten great frameworks from Greg, but I just want to give you this in terms of that parallel goal. This is too small for you to see. So on the one end, we have pursuing only profit, which leads to a negative impact. And what Greg didn't dive into in his capitalistic quadrant is the reality that much of the capitalistic quadrant is overtly exploitative. It's not just capitalistic. We're Americans. We think capitalism is good, right? We don't actually think socialism is all that attractive. One of us would cringe at that thought. But capitalism without love is exploitation. And there are humans on the other side of every investment transaction. We don't want to pursue blind profit. On the other end of the spectrum, if we were only pursuing I've told you the parallel goals. If we were only pursuing the goal of positive impact, those would be our charitable dollars. But there's all this different opportunity in between where we can pursue two goals at the same time. At a minimum, we want to accomplish our financial goals without being exploitative. We want to have an ethical approach to investing at a minimum, even if that's the bucket of capital that's more capitalistic, right? And then where we have opportunity, we want to push the envelope and actually be seeking impact and deep impact through investments like Talanton. I want to give you the 3-bucket approach here. So most of us, especially those who have a significant amount of wealth, there's really more than one kind of mental category that we put it in, right? First, there's the provision for our families and our lifestyle. And this is biblical. It's good for you to think about how to provide for your family. That's not wrong. There's also our charitable capital that we feel free and empowered to release and sow into the kingdom. And I think that bucket has the best rate of return. If you've read Randy Alcorn's The Treasure Principle, then you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like we're all playing with this monopoly money, and someday the only thing that's left is going to be whatever we sowed into the kingdom, right? But then there's this to be determined bucket. It's a potential excess. You've done your financial plan, and it shows that there's enough capital in the provision bucket, but then there's some that maybe you just don't feel released to give away yet. So different approaches are going to work well with different types of capital. And I really see that as the primary job of a skilled financial advisor, is to help an investor work through in which buckets of capital can I be free to pursue impact over profit? And in which buckets of capital do I have a responsibility and an obligation to invest for the benefit of my family, but also to invest ethically? And when you don't need liquidity, like that middle bucket, or maybe some parts of the provision bucket, then you can go deeper on impact because you're not relying on the liquidity of public markets. So there's a lot of really innovative stuff happening in public markets investing. Anybody who wants to hear some teasers on that or a deeper dive, our breakout session will cover that. But just know that, let's go back to the parable of talents one more time, because this is Talanton. And you can never talk about it enough. What would the master say upon return from his journey if he found his steward had in fact doubled or tripled or quadrupled the assets under management, but did so by investing in the campaigns of the master's enemy while he was away? Campaigns which kill, steal, and destroy. We're all on the same team here. I know that you are all leaders in impact investing. But if you left your S&P 500 mutual fund in your public markets portfolio, does it make any sense to lean in on deep impact with Talanton and then go ahead and give a big chunk of your capitalistic bucket to the enemy to play with? Come on. Let's be thoughtful about each bucket and how we have it deployed, and seek to bless and serve and bring joy to the master. This last slide, I don't know if you can see it or not. This is actually from Praxis. It's not mine. I just made it pretty. We want to move from exploitative investing, at least, to ethical investing. And as we have opportunity, we want to make the most of every opportunity to press in as the tip of the spear and be redemptive and bring about the culture of heaven on earth through our investing. Thank you.
Rachel, thank you so much. And I want everyone to be thinking of just one or two questions. We'll have time for a few of those at the end, and a bit of a panel discussion. So just to call out. And DG, over to you. I know you don't have a presentation, but DG Elmore, chairman of the board of the Navigator, so this is his home turf as well. And been here many times. He told me about 8 times a year, so isn't he lucky? Owner of multiple businesses. Do you own the Colorado Springs minor league baseball teams?
We do.
Okay, yeah. So amongst many. So it's been fun to have his daughter deeply involved at our investment committee. She also is CEO of 2 or 3 family businesses. So DG, any immediate response to what you just heard? And if not, then I'd love for you to share more about how you're integrating your faith into your investment decisions as a kind of a family holding company.
So, Jon, the one thing that struck me as I was listening was the need to have our hearts connected and what God's calling us into with our business mindsets and our business abilities, and the idea that, and I think it was a little bit concerning, but as I reflected when I was listening, I was reflecting on the idea in many cases, the secular world is ahead of the followers of Christ of how they're going to reach in and accomplish those sort of heavy capitalistic profit-oriented things, whether it's in the area of climate change or all sorts of ESG sorts of things. Not that those, I don't mean those are bad, but I mean, they seem to be leading and that's what I was hearing. And as I reflected, I think that was in many cases, in my reflections, I think that's true and somewhat discouraging, I guess, that, we need to be out there, I think, really leading in that area of doing business in a way that is creating jobs, breaking down the cycle of poverty, and advancing the gospel of Jesus and his kingdom. And I think that's where I think we just need to be much more conscious about that. That's what I was hearing and certainly reflecting on that. As I think about the journey our family's been on, the parable that we have thought a lot about is the one of the sower of the seed. And obviously that's speaking about sowing the word, but I also think about it just in the pragmatic sense of the farmer who is out sowing seed. And if we think about that as being our financial resources and our business resources, to some extent, I think we heard a little bit about this, is not everything that we put our seed out in, not everything we put our financial resources into that's an entrepreneurial adventure out there is going to produce huge returns. Some of it is going to fall on rocky soil, and it's just not going to take root. But we have to be willing to take that risk. But the thing that we obviously love is when it starts coming up. And one of the things that has driven our family is this idea that as we sow seeds, there's going to be a bountiful return of 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. And that's what we want to do as individuals within our businesses and investing in those companies that are going to produce returns that will continue to generate returns. Not for me. I don't need more return. It's easy for me to be in that upper left because for us, it's always been about charitable giving. And so actually it's sort of a weird mindset that, you're going to get a return on this money that you put at Talanton. It's like, I don't need that return. I want those businesses to have that return, that they generate more revenue, more employment. I want the return up there in that upper left side because I want the 100-fold to be going to those entrepreneurs and going to those employees of those businesses. So that's what has been part of our journey, and that's what I get fired up.
Right. It's great to get fired up. We got a few people fired up here on stage, so that's been really fun. And a lot of references to kind of the real heroes of this whole story, which is the entrepreneurs. And we're going to hear from them all afternoon, so you can look forward to that. And there's a breakout session with Rachel and Don Simmons on being a stewarded venture, and we'll spread around a bit and have more of a smaller group discussion. So that's coming. I'm going to ask just a couple questions, and I'll open it up to the audience. Rachel, you made a very interesting comment. If you're invested in the S&P 500, you might want to question that. Why?
Yeah. So it's more fun to talk about positive investing than it is to talk about the bad investing that happens that we all are sort of complicit in at one point or another in our lives. And no one likes to talk about, let's talk about what we're for and not what we're against. But can I just say, investing in the S&P 500 gives you significant exposure to things that violate your conscience. And it is inconvenient and it is complicated to try to work through that. It's messy and it's imperfect. Like the portfolios we manage are still imperfect portfolios. There aren't any perfect companies. But I think there is a holiness and a righteous desire to be on this discipleship journey to say, we don't want to put our dollars into investments blindly and abdicate our authority. If God put the talents that belong to him into your account, they're for you to manage according to his values. And his values don't align well with the S&P 500. For example, companies that profit from abortion, pornography, gambling, tobacco, that literally seeks another generation of victims to get as its customers. Alcohol, where, I may enjoy a glass of wine. I shouldn't say that I'm at the Navigators tier thing. But I also don't want to be an investor and an owner of a business where maybe 90% of the profits come from 10% of the customers, because it's clearly feeding off of addiction. So our responsibility and our opportunity is to think which of these companies need to be eliminated from my investment portfolio, and with the companies that remain in my investment portfolio, maybe they're doing some things I don't love, but I don't think they're a bad company altogether, then let me engage and have the faith-driven voice be heard in the marketplace. Right now, it's almost all the way silent. Even just not even faith-based, but even just a conservative voice is almost all the way silent. We need to get better at engaging with the marketplace. And there are some really exciting things, people that are developing services where they can advocate and vote proxies on your behalf in alignment with your kingdom values.
Okay. Wow. Everyone go back and look at your portfolios, I guess.
Do.
Yeah. Thanks for the challenge, Rachel. It's just so important. Keeping in mind 1 Chronicles, 29, that all resources are God's. It's really based in Scripture, that what you're saying, I think. And we have more transparency now to actually do our homework and be held accountable to that. So I think that's a great call out. Greg, you also said something super interesting. How many some investments you've made?
We have 140.
Yeah, 140. Can you choose one in 2 or 3 minutes and say why you're particularly excited about it? Maybe a story of a life transformed, or something that you say, because I know you guys do a lot of strategy and digging. I work a lot with Greg's son, Tom, and like DG, both have deeply involved their families in everything they do, which is really, really cool. And I love working with your son.
Yeah.
So what's the one you'd call out and say, this is an example of just a fantastic impact?
Yes, I have plenty, but I'll start with one because it's an African-based crowd. That's what we're thinking about in Uganda. The company's name is Pure Flow. I think we have an investor over there. And what they do, it was started by two people from America that were in East Africa trying to solve problems, and they saw these motorcycles. If you've never been to a developing country, they're called boda drivers, and you'll see 5 people on it, 3 people, 8 people. It's like a little cab. They take you from here to there. They get paid. And 80% of them did not own their bicycles or motorcycles, and they were charged relatively high rates. So this young man said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to help them own their bikes, motorcycles. And so he had 6,000 to his name. The video is 4 minutes if you want to go to Pure Flow. He really does a wonderful job doing it. And he said, all my life savings was $6,000 out the door, drove 6 motorcycles. And he said, I didn't think they were going to come back. And sure enough, the next day they came back. And he's created a business where we loan them money at 8%, a number that we seem to think we can raise capital off of. And over 12, 18, or 24 months, they own their own motorcycle. That increases their take-home pay by 50%. It's okay. That's really good, right? The nice thing is if you got $20 million, you could do, there's over 1 million motorcycles in East Africa. None of these they're all at the bottom of the pyramid where we're working. But you're saying, well, where's the spiritual side? They come in once a week, and he pours into them, reads the Bible, shares stories, talks to them about community. It's incredible. So in our bullseye, it's led by faith, pouring into individuals. 8% return we'll take. There's no collateral behind it. The whole thing could go out of business tomorrow. So I don't want to make Africa sound like it's easy, but we can't wait to invest again. And I would tell other Christians, just look at it. I'm not a registered investment advisor. My risk tolerance may be higher, but what they're doing is pure. And the people they're helping like Rachel said, we get excited. We have a wealth advisor that's down on the right capitalistic side, and I can hardly stay awake, no offense, in that business because I'm not moved by that unknown stock went up 4%. I'm literally going, I got to get it out of there. I got to get it out of there. And then I go in the upper left-hand quadrant, and I get super excited about Pure Flow. And if it goes under, I don't need the money. We're going to redeploy that money. That's all we're going to do. And I have more if you want.
That's great, Greg. Well, thank you. And Greg will be helping to facilitate one of the breakout sessions. So more time with him if you choose his group. DG, question, then we'll go to the floor here for a couple questions. I've always been intrigued as to your perspective with your family businesses about how you make decisions and how you integrate faith into due diligence, into how you then post-investment support. Maybe you could share a story too, rather than just kind of high level, but if there's one that comes to mind where you've seen a breakthrough or a transformed life. It's a broad question, but I'll leave it to you to answer it how you like.
Thanks, Jon. So, the businesses we own are, they're just normal, companies that do different things, staffing, food manufacturing, things like that. And we like to have operating partners who own part of the company, and we don't have a requirement that they're Christian. And so I've got many stories I could tell. I'll tell one about good friend Todd, who grew up Catholic, walked away from the faith, didn't really have much of a faith journey going on. And so we're working together, and I just personally take a view that I'm going to share about Jesus with people just in the midst of life. It's not because we're going to be together. Todd's running one of the companies. We're going to be together for years. And so there's this one time that we'd spent all day together at a business, and we're now getting ready to take the red eye from Los Angeles back to Chicago. And, it's 11 o'clock at night, and we're sitting at, gate 72, getting ready to get on United Airlines. And he says to me, I've figured it out. I said, you figured it out? I said, what do you mean? He said, it's all about faith and grace and the grace of Jesus and putting my faith in him. And I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. So, right there, still get emotional, as you can tell about it, because so we're still together. We've been now partners for 20 plus years. And, he's got a really good walk with God. He's been through some really tough stuff. But it is just being with people in business. And that's a dynamic. I think that's the thing many of us can appreciate, is being in business with people and sharing life on your life in the midst of that business takes us to places with those people that we would not get with anybody else. We would not have that opportunity. My neighbor that I see, maybe once a week, and maybe have a meal with them once a month. I mean, that takes it. But here, day after day, year after year, of us just living in life together in the home, in the business, on the phone, in the emails, that is so significant. That's what I love about what Talanton does in terms of taking business and using it as a pathway to introduce people to Jesus and living like Jesus with them and in front.
DG, thank you so much. We have time for just one or two quick questions, but I will say this: one of the key learnings at Talanton, is post-investment support is one of the key parts of our strategy for impact, obviously, because we have that long-term relationship with all of our investments. So we tried outsourcing to a mentoring organization, really good organization, faith-driven. We had a little bit of uptake. We work with the Navigators, fantastic organization. And what we've learned is that it's really us on the Talanton team. We're the ones who build deep relationships in due diligence. We're the ones who call them every quarter looking for financial results. We're the ones who, have the opportunity for life on life. So we thought, well, we're too busy doing due diligence, raising capital. Let's outsource some of this. And it was a mistake we made. We're learning, I should say, that it's really us. And and it doesn't have to be some big structured program. It's more, this is African investing. Investing anywhere in the world, quite honestly, there's going to be ups and downs. And when there's those downs in particular, you can step in, and we've done this 2 or 3 times, restructure loans, help them get through a very difficult stretch. Not gone to use our security, getting the same return in the long run, and doing that sort of thing. And we've done quite a bit of that. So it's been a blessing. So a couple quick questions we'll need, and then a couple short. We have a lot more time together this afternoon and breakouts. So don't worry if there's not enough Q&A. Eric's got a roving mic, it looks like. So
Anybody got a question? Here we go.
Brian, it looks like you raised your hand. Yeah. Oh, okay. We'll go to you a second, Brian.
I guess I'll kick it off. Would love your insight, all three of you, any and all, of what do you perceive as the obstacles that are causing the Christian communities at large to lack the imagination, both to, well, first of all, to understand that all resources they have are God's, we have our God's, but also to take the risk and kind of move forward with this. And so not only what are the blocks, but how have each of you been able to kind of disarm or disable those blocks that kind of move somebody forward, if there are examples of that?
I do this all day. So I would say the big block is really the worship of mammon, because mammon wants, there was a wonderful Andy Crouch teaching through FDI. If any of you have not heard it, I encourage you to just Google it. It's really fantastic. Yeah, it's amazing. But mammon desires our worship. And the more of it there is, the more gravity it has. So the more wealth, like I think you mentioned feeling the sense of burden, right? Like when there's a huge amount in the bank account, it comes with this burden to it. And the more of it there is, the more gravity it's trying to pull on us, right? And it's pulling and desiring for us to put our trust in it, rather than to put our trust in the living God. And yeah, I mean, that's a good question, but I'm not sure why it seems to impact Christians more strongly specifically, but that is the number one obstacle that I would say is like just helping people move past, like they're even worried about market rate investments. Like, what if it returns 0.5% less because I apply my ethical filter? And really, it's surprising. I had the pleasure to serve a wonderful investor, $10 million investor in his late 70s, cancer survivor. $10 million, late 70s. This does not take a lot of financial planning.
Let's give it away.
Probably going to be okay. But he was so distraught over the losses in the markets. And of course, I'm trying to think, like, well, this is a person who has a significant opportunity for impact investing. But it's the pace at which we're willing to allow change to come. It's how much are we putting our trust in, even sometimes finding our identity in what's on our balance sheets instead of in the living God. So I'll say, as you probably have observed, one of the things I like to do is to persuade people. Like, I love to just turn on that persuasive, like, let me see if whoever has ears to hear, let them hear, like, let me just give the message. But it's really through prayer is the times when I've seen the Lord is really the only one who can change hearts, right? So we do our faithful duty and do the part that God's given us to do, and then pray that God changes the heart. And sometimes he does.
Let me make a couple of comments, Kathy, in that, number one, I saw a curve years ago, and I have not been able to find it again, and it's a U. So picture going like this, and it has income on the Y and has anxiety on the X. And with a low amount of income, you have a high anxiety. And then the anxiety tends to drift down once you make more income. Then there comes another point where you're making too much income and the anxiety comes back. Because I'm friends with a person who's very wealthy, and he's like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. And I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. And I think that's overwhelming to some people. The other is, and I can't wait for this to happen, men, barroom chat or whatever, yeah, you should see the return I got on that investment. We killed it, 22%. You don't hear anybody saying, I got a 4% investment in South Africa, and you should hear about it. No one talks about it. And so that's unfortunate. But here's the good news. Rachel can talk more on as well, is the world's going to change very soon. All the money's going to the women. And the women are better, purposeful care. Don't joke. It's going from 10 to 30 trillion over the next, I think it's 7 years, by 2030. And women invest differently. They're going to be much more impact-oriented. And all the young generation is coming. They're totally into brands that are making a difference. So the good news is, if we can get the Christians to help lead in this, it's coming regardless. Women are going to do it, and the kids.
Amen. That's the whole values-driven, sweeping everything. You have to choose sides a bit. We have time for one more quick question. If it's you raised your hand, so yeah. Two. There's two.
I thought I had to grab it out of the air. I guess I'm wondering, Greg, DG, I heard you both say something along the lines of, I don't need the return. Or I'm playing for a different return. I don't need the return to feed my family. I wonder what your older self would have said to your younger self if you were considering how you were investing, about investing dollars that you do need. When you're thinking about your experience here in light of this, it does all belong to God. And for some reason, the story that came to my mind as I was processing that is the story of the widow, Christ watching people giving and the widow's mite. She gave what she needed. I just wonder how would you reflect on that, if at all?
That's part of the burden that Rachel mentioned that I brought up. I would never profess that we have done sacrificial giving yet. And I struggle with that. We are going to give all our money away in the next 10 years. We're sunsetting it. And so our goal, we're going to get zero. And now what we struggle with is, what's the number that you keep just to stay alive? One of the smarter things we did was we willed to our kids that are young adults now that have had children and are very established. We gave them a small percentage. And that's a fixed number now. So my son who's on investing doesn't care per se. He's following the kingdom. If not, I think the devil would be in his ear saying, go to this one for 22%. When they die, you're going to make all that money. And now it doesn't matter. He's not going to make any money. It's all going to the kingdom. But my younger self was capitalistic and tithing. That was it. No question about it. And then once you have a wealth event, and I can't afford not to have the money come back, I realize everybody has a different economic status, but it still comes back to, what number can you live on? Is it my dad in the small town Michigan City, Indiana, never made more than $20,000 in his life, and $30,000 he could live like a king. Washington, D.C., San Francisco, maybe a little more. And so we still struggle with that. And what we've done, where I said it originally was a burden, literally my wife and I were sitting there saying, I don't want to ruin our kids. I don't want to ruin our kids. I don't want them wishing for us to die. I don't want to ruin our kids. And then after a handful of years of doing it, we said, this is a responsibility, and we're going to steward this for God. And we finally got to the point, this is God's resources. But now, in the last year, I would say that wealth has been a blessing, which if you had asked me 10 years ago, I couldn't have even, in 1,000 years, come up with a blessing. And the reason I say a blessing, our son got involved, our daughter's involved, our daughter-in-law's involved, and we offered nothing to any of them. We didn't ask them to come to work with us. And they're around Christ-centered people every day of the week. And what happened to them is they become more Christ-centered. They have empathy for Africa. And I couldn't pay for that. And if we did not get this wealth event that I think we are stewarding, God has blessed us for some reason because we're trying not to hold on to it. But it's hard. It's hard. I hope that helped a little, Brian. It's just, I don't want to stand up here and anybody think we're doing anything special. We're not. Everybody has a different level of time, talent, and treasure. Our treasure is more than we need, and we're doing everything we can to help the kingdom with it. That's all I can say. If somebody else's treasure may be less and their talent's more, awesome. Or even if their treasure, I'm nowhere near the widow's mite. I'm humiliated compared. I'm that other guy. that's giving money from the excess right now. But we will come to a time when my wife and I are sitting there going, okay, we're down, and because we're going to give it away.
Can I just add one quick comment? I can be very concise. I would say where profit really matters and the returns really matter, there's still a type of profit that we don't want. And that's where that discernment comes in to say, yeah, we're still going to seek unapologetically, this is money that's for provision for our family. We have that biblical responsibility, but we're going to invest in such a way that doesn't profit off the backs of the poor or, through slave labor or things that are naturally just more exploitative and don't align with the heart of God.
I think we're ready. I know, DG, I know you have a whole story on this, and I think we'll stay on schedule and take, I think, a 10-minute break. If you have time to connect with any of these three with any questions you have, I'm sure they're readily available.
I want to say one more word to Jerry. I'm sorry, it'll take me 10 seconds. I did not realize the ministry world, what you were talking about, how it has to go. I've heard Billy Graham and others, but it is 100% true that working is where we're going to help the ministry work done. We need to provide jobs for those people.
You can feel it. You can feel it at Talanton. That's one joy we have. 99% of the world has to care about commerce Monday through Saturday, and it's where they connect with other people and where they get meaning, where they use their giftedness. So amen, Greg. I mean, it's the opportunity to show life on life, the stuff DG talked about on a daily basis, and just look for those opportunities to share Christ and come alongside people. A round of applause for this wonderful panel. Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing vulnerably from your hearts.
Yeah, we'll gather again here at 10:45. A couple things I heard right as you're writing notes. Greg said we cannot solve global issues with grand dollars. Rachel, there are people on either side of every transaction. And that guy's smiling at me. Why is he smiling at me? He's a Christian. I want the 100-field full return to go to the business making an impact. Thank you, DG. So, all right, 10-minute break. We'll be back at 10:45.